What's going on, guys? Ben here, and today I have something a bit special for you. Some of you may know that recently KitGuru and Fractal Design teamed up for a competition where I think there was 10 winners could each win a case. They had 2 different cases up for grabs and 5 winners for each case. Today I have the Fractal Design Core 500, and I can't remember the name of the other case, but I'm sure you'll start seeing those videos rolling soon. Now anyways, again, big thanks to KitGuru and Fractal Design for holding this. Part of the competition was you had to go ahead and send in a video of a previous review or case review, so then they would choose those who they thought could do a fairly good job. You know, obviously it's not trying to be mean, but they do want to help out, they obviously want to make sure that you can go ahead and give your opinion and do have the capabilities to do videos. So without further ado, let's go ahead and check this bad boy out. On the front here, I know it's probably a bit hard to see it in the video, but it does have kind of that, it's going for that aluminum brushed finish look here, but it's actually plastic, but it still looks nice. As you can see here, we have down at the bottom is the Fractal Design logo. On either side down here, we can see there are a couple of vents to go ahead and let some intake air and some airflow in, because as this case is designed for a Mini-ITX setup, things can get cramped in here, so airflow is going to be important. Speaking of airflow, we can just go ahead and move around here. As you can see on this side here, there's another big vented area. On the top here, another big vented area. On the bottom, on this side, there's a smaller little vented area, but it's good because there's vents on all sides. We of course have on the bottom, this is our vented area here, which is quite interesting because I believe that's going to be where our power supply is going to pull its air in from. Because as we can see here on the back, there's no cutout for a power supply, but what we do have is a place to plug our power cable in. And normally when you see these, they're just extensions that you plug it in here, then there's another cable that runs in through the case that you plug into your power supply when it's normally in the front of the case. But again, we have another big vented area here that actually comes with a pre-installed fan in it, so that's good to get the airflow going. We'll come right back to this in a second, but here on the front, if you'll bear with me, we have our front I/O panel, which consists of a power and a reset button. We of course have what appears to be the hard disk drive LED. We have our audio inputs, headphone and microphone, and then there are 2 USB 3.0 ports for easy connectivity and all that stuff. Again, moving around to the back, we have 4 thumb screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, that when you undo these, it will go ahead and take the whole case off. So I'm going to go ahead and undo those right now and get this off, and we can have a look on the inside. Alright, so I've gone ahead, I've taken the front off, and I've taken the top and the sides off. So now, once we take a quick look at these, we'll be able to access everything inside of the case. As for the front panel, it simply just lifts off from the bottom. Just put a good tug on it. Obviously, you don't want to do it too hard, but a little bit of force and it will just pull off. You don't have to worry because there are no wires connected to it. Now, as we can see with the top and the sides, the 2 longer vented areas actually have magnetic dust covers applied to them, which is great. This would be an easy option for keeping the case clean, because normally a lot of times it'll prevent dust from getting in, and when you want to clean it, you just open it up, take these out, hoover them, shake them off, clap them together, do whatever you want to do. This is really nice. We're seeing more and more companies include some sort of dust filter, and I am personally a real big fan of the magnetic ones because they just simply slide in and out of place or slap on, you pull them off, and they're just great to work with. Alright, so starting off with the front, once you've got that front panel off, you realize there's not a whole lot going on here. Now we can of course see our drive bay for a 5.25 inch optical drive bay, or if you want to put some sort of reservoir in there for a bit of liquid cooling, that's always a possibility as well. The one thing to notice is just to the right hand side of the optical drive bay, right below it, there are a few little holes. You'll see the 4 little holes making a square and some little clips that pull out on the side. This is actually one of the 3 SSD mounting areas. Now of course, With m-ITX systems, space is key, and one of the things is SSDs, everybody wants them, or everybody needs them. You know, you got to have plenty of room for hard drive mounting, and it's always nice to see new ways of doing it. This is personally my first time seeing an SSD mounted to the front panel of the case. Obviously, when the front cover's on, you won't see it, but it's still my first time seeing it up in the front, though I must say I've not dealt with too many Mini-ITX cases in my days. Moving around to the side, and we have two more SSD mounting solutions, one on the left and one on the right there. It is kind of hard to see where they are with all of this stuff, but if you'll notice the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 clips, those are what will hold your SSD in, and you can secure it in place with a couple of the included screws. Another thing we'll also be able to notice is down on the bottom left hand side, we see that vented area again, which is definitely for the PSU. Looking at the case from this side, this will be the back side of the PSU where we'll plug in our power extender that comes pre-installed in the case. And then if your power supply has a power button or whatever that's normally on the back side, you'll be able to access that from this side as well. Moving around to the other side of the case, and as you can see, we have a bit more open area here. We can start getting some stuff in here. This will be probably the main side where a lot of your things will go. Obviously, this will be the front side. On the right will be the front of the power supply where your cables are coming off in most cases, so you'll be able to plug your modular cables in, or if you don't have a modular power supply, you'll be able to get them all and connect it up. This will also, of course, be where we'll install the motherboard, which will be just on the left hand side. Right under where those cables were. As you'll see, there are a couple standoffs there, 4 pretty much square corners. Go ahead and put your motherboard on that. One thing to make notice of is you will most likely, depending on your setup, you will want to prepare your motherboard first. Now, if you're using a standard air cooler, you'll want to go ahead and install that on top of the CPU. You'll probably want to go ahead and put your RAM in as well. Now, the graphics card isn't as big a deal because it's pretty much going to be up on its side facing this window, right? Well, it's not a window, but this opening of the case will be where the fans of the graphics card are. Now, obviously, if you're going to be water cooling and doing stuff like that, you'll need to approach this case a bit differently, but most likely you'll have a bit better knowledge of that yourself and you'll know what you need to do. Obviously, there's so many possibilities and combinations of what can go in here. You really just need to take account for your hardware and how you need to install it. Now, another thing worth mentioning, which was hard to see, is if we go back to the other side, behind those SSD brackets are also going to be where our 3.5-inch hard drives go. There's also a third slot for a 3.5-inch hard drive where the optical drive bay is. Right underneath it, you can go ahead and slot another hard drive in there. And that's pretty much it for the outside, or the side we can see from. That's pretty much it for this case, except from the outside view. Well, before you start working in it, except for the top. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at that. Alright, so here we have the top of the case, and I know that in this video the whole case looks a little bit crooked. I apologize, but that is due to the power extender cable sticking out the back side of the case on that right side a little bit. It's not the floor of the camera that's lopsided. It's not the case either, it's just a little bit sticking out on one side. Now, as you will see here, we've got some combinations for some water cooling. Now, obviously, you can go ahead and fit a couple fans in here. You have a couple of different options. On the top here, as we can see, you can either fit any variation of 1 or 2 120 mil or 140 mil fans. So You can also use a 240 or 280 millimeter radiator. That's always nice because obviously ITX cases are a lot of cramped in there. There's a lot of heat. So it's good to know that we can get some water cooling in there. A 280 millimeter radiator should be sufficient for just about any setup you're going to put in here. As this is an ITX case, there are only 2 PCI expansion slots on the rear panel there, so you can only have 1 graphics card, 1 CPU. I know for X99 there is 1 ITX motherboard out there, but in most cases you'll probably be using 1150 or the new 1151 sockets, Z170 and all that. So hopefully a nice 280 millimeter radiator should be able to cool your CPU for you. It also leaves you the chance to go ahead and install all-in-one cooling solutions. I know Fractal Design have a few of those themselves, so that's always good. They've got their Kelvin series, which look spectacular. You could go ahead and fit, I can't remember if they've got 240 or 280, but I know there's one that would come with the 2 fans, and it would fit in this case just perfectly. It's also worth noting that the rear fan can be removed if needed. It's a 120 millimeter fan, so you could also install a 120 millimeter cooling solution there, whether all-in-one or another radiator, and then put some fans in the top. Or, I mean, it's pretty much up to you. There are definitely a few different options for this case, which is quite nice. I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. I know it's starting to get a little bit long, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build in this case and then give you guys my final thoughts on it. Alright, so here we have it. I've completed the build inside the Fractal Design Core 500 Mini-ITX case. I ran into one, well not one, but there was definitely a bit of a learning curve going on here. One was at the end of the build, trying to put the cover back on the top. As you can see, I've gone ahead and installed a 280 millimeter all-in-one CPU cooler. Now, the problem I had was when I installed it, I had it pushed all the way to the front, and there were 2 little clips on the top side of the of the top that goes on. As we can see here, those 2 little clips there, they wouldn't quite fit into where they belong, which is just right here and right here. Now the problem being, like I said, is I had the radiator pushed all the way to the front, so it didn't fit in. It was easily rectified by loosening up the screws, and as you can see, you can slide it back and forth, and I had to push it all the way towards the back of the case. It's also worth noting that to install this all-in-one cooler, I had to go ahead and remove the fan from the back of the case that was acting as an exhaust, which isn't too big of an issue, all things considered. Alright, try not to waste too much time getting right into things. There was another little learning curve here, and that came in when I was installing the power supply. Now the power supply easily slides in through the bottom into place. Now the issue being is you need to push the power supply about 95% of the way in to where it's going to finally be set and all that, and then plug the cable in, and you'll have to kind of route the cable between the frame of the case and the mounting bracket for the power supply. Now while this does cause a little bit of trouble and a little bit of hardship when you're installing it, after it's installed and all the screws are in place and the power supply is in place, that mains cable there on the bottom left is actually secured into place, so even if you wanted to, you could not pull it out just by hand. Now obviously there may be ways, but for the average person, the average thing, now this is a good thing, because now if you route some cables back here or put something back here, you don't have to worry about knocking it out, because that plug is going nowhere, trust me. As you'll also see, the cable is a little bit long. There is the power connector for the mains cable from the back of the case to the power supply. Now I would imagine that this is so you can go ahead and move it out the way and put, if you want to put something else back there, maybe you got a few more cables you want to route back there or whatnot. I personally felt that it's a little bit too long. At the same time, I do understand where Fractal are coming from and why they've chosen to do it this way. Above that, you'll see the hard drive mounting. Of course, I've gone with 2 SSDs to mount in there. These were fairly easy to mount, though there were 2 little clips on the bottom side on each SSD that I had to bend out of the way with pliers. Now, while this isn't a real big issue, it's just something to take note of. I mean, obviously, if you're working on this case, you're going to have a screwdriver or some pliers handy. See, they easily just bend out the case, and then you can mount the SSDs there. And as you can see, they look quite nice. There's a nice cutout in the middle of them, so you can go ahead and get your power and your SATA cables in there, and everything looks good. Moving on to the main side of the case, as I always call it, where you can see the graphics card. Now, again, well, not again, but one of the things you want to take note of is the graphics card is probably going to be the last thing you want to install in this case. As you can see, it blocks up this whole area, so there's no real getting behind it after it's installed. Another thing to take note of is the cable management here on the right between the graphics card and the case. It was a bit tricky. I did have to route some cables out of the way to get the graphic card to fit in there, but as you can see, there is quite a bit of room there on the side to put some cables and whatnot in there. For reference, this graphics card is the Asus R9 290X DirectCU2 4GB version. So while it is definitely not the biggest graphics card out there, it's certainly not the smallest. And as you can see, there's still quite a bit of room there for a longer graphics card and better cable management. Now, my overall building inside the Fractal Design Core 500 was good. I enjoyed it. It wasn't too bad, though there were definitely some learning curves and whatnot. I mean, to get the radiator installed into the top, you actually have to take off the whole top bracket and then mount the radiator to the bracket and put it back in. And while these are not things to deter you from liking this case, it's just there's a bit of a learning curve, and someone more experienced in Mini-ITX builds is probably more aware of these things anyways. Myself, I prefer bigger is better, though these ITX cases are great, and I'll actually be looking to do another build in this case, hopefully soon, that will actually stay in this case and maybe used as some sort of home theater PC or whatnot, so I can go ahead and get some gaming with my son on the big screen. As I said, overall, building in it was fairly easy. It didn't take me long at all, even with the little learning curves. Now, obviously, like I said, it depends. If you've never built a PC before, you'll probably want to go ahead and put the motherboard in first, and then put the cooler in if you're using it all in one. If not, you can put the cooler. If you're using a small air cooler, you can already have it right attached to the motherboard. Put that in, then obviously you get the power supply and some cables in, and I did the SSDs second to last, and as I mentioned, the graphics card last. Overall, it was real enjoyable. It's a nice case. It's definitely a sturdy built for how small it is. It really feels sturdy when you pick it up. Obviously, I've put my hardware in there. It's nice and heavy, and it feels quality. One of the things I wasn't overly happy about was losing the rear exhaust fan that comes with the case due to the size radiator I put in there, but now again, this could be easily rectified. I might have a smaller, thinner fan to put back there, but I could not get it so that the pre-installed rear exhaust fan stayed in place while I had the 280mm all-in-one. I want to say a big thank you to KitGuru and Fractal Design for hosting this competition and allowing some of us to check out some of these cases and do some videos on them for you. If you guys have any questions, I'm not quite sure where this video is going to be set up, but please feel free to ask away. If I see the questions, I will do my best to answer. Again, thank you to Fractal Design and KitGuru, and have a good day.